the need to pay and receive refunds is something that all organizations have to account for. Argenta has refunds payable and refunds receivable built in to every section in the general financials module. I'm Andy O'Connor, the Chief Financial Officer for Argenta, and in this video I'll show you how refunds, both payable and receivable, work in Argenta. Alright then, let's jump in here. We'll start with refunds payable, because donors, members, and customers will inevitably need a refund from you, and you'll need to understand how those get entered. So as you may or may not know, the General Financials module is a fully integrated system. What that means is everything works together, and a lot of manual processes are replaced by automation. As an example, a donor can make a donation online by using your public donation form, and that donation goes into the system automatically, and you can find it in the fundraising module under donations. It also goes into your general journal and is assigned to the donations account in your chart of accounts. After that, you can add it to a deposit along with all of your other Stripe transactions for the day, and everything is as it should be. Now, let's say it's about a week later and a donor contacts you and tells you they need a refund for that donation. So they can make a bigger contribution as a sponsor. If your policy is to refund donations, then there's a way to do that. Remember that refunds payable can be applied to any of these payment instances. So donations, membership fees, invoice payments, and any of the other payment types in Argenta. Those are miscellaneous payments, delegate payments, mission trip payments, rent payments, program and event sponsorships, and event ticket sales. All of those sections have a refund tab in the workspace for the item you're refunding. In the donation I showed you, you can see the refunds tab here. Opening the refunds tab, it takes you to where you'll enter the refund for the donation or payment. It's very easy to enter a refund. You just click the issue a refund button. A panel will just sort to slide down here, and you'll enter the refund details, and you can choose to issue either a full or a partial refund, and that's a nice option to have then. The next thing is to enter a refund category. You can choose one of the system categories in the drop-down list, or if none of those suits the need for the refund, you can add a category by just clicking the add button and entering one. Next is a very short description of the refund. This shows up in the refund list, so you'll need to keep it very brief. The system auto-populates this field, and that's really handy, right? It's always refund, followed by the type of transaction and the transaction ID. This is helpful for future viewing and reporting. These next data points are standard fields. Refund date. This is always auto-populated with the current date. The amount of the refund, just enter that here. The refund method. This is how the refund was issued. This can be by check, or maybe you went into your Stripe control panel and issued the refund there. So that would be electronic transfer. However you got the funds back to the payer, choose that here. If you have one, you can enter a check number or reference number here. And then when you're done filling all the required fields and as much information as you can, really, click the apply this refund to this donation button, and that's all. And you'll see the refund here in the list of refunds applied to the donation you're in. You can see here that the refund displays a fund, a deposit account, and an account from the chart of accounts. It's important that the refund is accounted for in a certain way. So the system automatically does this for you by taking the refund out of the same deposit or bank account that the original donation was deposited into and debiting the refunds payable liability account. I'll explain a little bit about that from an accounting perspective then. When a refund is issued from you to a donor or customer, these refunds are not recorded as expenses because they aren't business expenses that your organization has incurred. Instead, you'll need to reduce your revenue by the amount of the refund so that your balance sheet is correct. That happens in a general journal by debiting a liability account. In Argenta, that default account is 2200 refunds payable. And you can see that here in the general journal for the donation we refunded. Now, you can change these account designations if you need to. They're the default, but you may do your accounting differently, so we allow for that then. To change these, or change any details about the refund, really, you'll go back to where the refund was entered. Or you can also go to the main refunds payable list by choosing general financials, then refunds payable here in the main menu. Like any main list in Argenta, you can add a new refund. You can filter or sort the list. You can search for a refund or export the list to Excel. And finally, you can open or delete a refund here in the list. Back to changing the refund then. In the list, you'll find the refund you want to change and open it. This brings you to the refund workspace and the refund details tab. Like I said earlier, you can change the accounting information here in this accounting section. You can change the deposit or bank account. Obviously, this should be whatever bank account you're using to pay the refund. And you can change the account from the chart of accounts if you want to use a different liability account. The only accounts that populate this list are liability for the reasons I outlined earlier, but you can create and use your own if you need to. Just go over to the chart of accounts in the general financials module to do so. Then if you want to update any of the details for the refund, like refund date, amount, etc., you can set those here and save your changes. Okay, we've sufficiently covered refunds payable. So now let's jump into refunds receivable. These are refunds that your organization receives. Just like with refunds payable, refunds receivable are associated to a transaction that's occurred previously. Refunds receivable can be applied to business expenses, vendor orders, or grants payable. Just like we saw before, refunds receivable are applied to the transaction in the workspace. So for example, with a business expense, you would go to general financials, then business expenses in the main menu, and then find and open the expense you've received a refund for. Switch to the associated refunds tab. This is where you'll add the refund. So click the add a new refund button here. Just like with refunds payable, you can indicate whether you've received a full or partial refund. You can choose a category for your refund from the refund categories in the system, or add a new one if you need to. The refund description will auto-populate with refund for plus the transaction type plus the ID of the refunded expense. You can change it. Just remember to call it something you'll recognize later though, because it will display everywhere with this title. Next, the system will auto-populate the refund date with the current date. You can obviously change that to whatever date the refund took place. Then you enter the amount of the refund, whatever that was. The refund method, which is again, how you receive the refund, whether by check or cash or a credit back to your credit card. And finally here, if you were issued a check, you could enter the check number. Or if you have a reference number, either one of those could be entered here. When you've filled in all the fields, click the apply this refund to this expense button, and that's all. The panel will close and you'll see the refund displayed here. Just like with refunds payable before, Argenta will automatically enter the refund into the general journal. It'll use the same deposit or checking account that was used to pay for the original expense. What is different though is the account from the chart of accounts. So I'll explain then. A refund receivable adds to the total revenue. So you'll need to increase your revenue by the amount of the refund, which you do by using an asset account. Argenta has a system account for this, account 1500, refunds receivable. This is where any receivable refund will automatically be designated to. This maintains the integrity of the original expense transaction and records the refund as income, which conceptually offsets the expense. You can change this if necessary by opening the refund here. This brings you to the refund workspace and the refund details tab. Like I said earlier, you can change the accounting information here in this accounting section. You can change the deposit or bank account. This should be whatever deposit or bank account the money was refunded to. It could be any asset account, like a credit card as well, if the funds were charged back to the original card you used to pay for the expense. Now you can change the account from the chart of accounts if you want to use a different asset account. The only accounts that populate this list are asset for the reasons I outlined earlier, but you can create and use your own if you need to. Just go over to the chart of accounts in the general financials module to do so. Then if you want to update any of the details for the refund, like refund date, amount, etc., you can set those here and save your changes. One last thing here in the workspace on the details tab, because you can access refunds receivable from the main list as well as from the original transactions workspace. The refund details tab displays the original transaction ID here, along with what type of transaction it was. So in this case, an expense. If you click on the link, it will take you to the original transactions workspace. This makes it easy to reference that original transaction, and that's part of how integration in Argenta works. Then, right, you won't have to go about looking for connected or integrated records. You typically can find a path to them right where you are. Okay, before we close out this video, I just want to show you how that refund was recorded in the general journal. Here it is here. You can see that the checking account was debited, and don't get hung up on the terminology. In accounting, this means the money was put into that asset or checking account. The refunds receivable asset account was credited the amount of the refund, which increases revenue in the proper way. This is good because you can see the refund we paid earlier is here, so you can see exactly the difference in the general journal between a payable refund and a receivable refund. And this is how it should be if you're following GAAP accounting principles. Alright then, this has been a thorough overview of refunds and how they work in Argenta. The General Financials module has all the tools you need for accounting, with the added benefit of full integration and automation. For more information on refunds or any other General Financials module in Argenta, go to our knowledge base at argentasoftware.com/kb. Yeah, thank you for watching.